for the opening prayer.
Let's pray. Be with us, Lord, in all our prayers. Attainment of salvation. And among the changes and challenges, we may be always defended by your gracious hand.
Take up my cross to save yourself. You may have your seats. Our scripture reading this evening comes from Matthew chapter 16, and we will read verses 20 to 28 responsibly.
Here begins the reading. Then he sternly ordered the disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah.
From that time on, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and undergo great suffering at the hands of the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised.
And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, God forbid it, Lord, this must never happen to you.
But he turned and said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things.
Then Jesus told his disciples, if any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me.
For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it.
For what will it profit them if they gain the whole world but forfeit their life? Or what will they give in return for their life?
For the Son of Man is to come with his angels in the glory of his Father, and then he will repay everyone for what has been done. Truly I tell you, there are some standing here who will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom.
The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
We'll do hymn 94. Alas, and my Savior, bleed and
as well as those who may be joining us via our live stream. As you just heard, our theme for this year's Lenten Midweek revival services, you can carry your own cross. You can carry your own cross. And we may ask ourselves, well, how is it that you're saying you can carry our own? We heard in the reading earlier that disciples, we must indeed take up our cross and follow him. So, if Jesus said, take up our cross, that we can't. If anyone, we just read that in Matthew 16 and verse 24. Notice also that when we look at this story, Jesus himself could not carry his cross. Jesus himself could not carry his cross. Then neither can we. Jesus fell on the load of his cross, exhausted and unable to carry it to the end. Chapter 19 and verse 17, we read, and Jesus bearing his cross went forth to a place called Golgotha. But we are not told how far Jesus carried his cross. We know from elsewhere in the Bible that Simon of Cyrene was compelled to pick up and carry Jesus' cross to the place of crucifixion. Matthew 27, verse 2. So if Jesus himself could not and did not carry his cross to the end, why would he ask us to take up our cross and follow him? But follow him suggests that the fact that he willingly took up his cross and he's asking us to willingly take up our cross, and just as he did not carry it to the end, then if we are to follow him, we too would not be able to carry it to the end. We too would need help. We need God's grace, the help of God to strengthen us, and the help of others as well. Just as Simon would have helped Jesus carry his cross, we too need external or outside help to carry our cross. Jesus did take up his cross and was led by his tormentors or persecutors like a lamb to be slain. He went humbly. He went without resistance. He knew he had to sacrifice, and so he went willingly. But he could not carry that cross for too long. The truth is, Jesus was too weak, having been beaten, having been mocked and spat upon. Jesus was too weak and frail to carry his cross. It was laid on another shoulder, mentioned Simon of Cyrene. He had reached the end of his endurance as he made his way towards Calvary. Jesus was a physically broken and wounded man. Isn't it true that there is only so much a person can take physically? Is it true? Is it safe to say that we all have a breaking point? Whether physically, emotionally, that it comes to that point, it comes that time when we don't feel we can carry on. We are at the end in terms of our ability to move forward on our own, our ability to continue along the journey or to continue whatever it is that we are engaged in. And Jesus was human. Now, when Jesus uses it, may not be sure exactly what is it he's asking of us. But to those his disciples and those who have heard him, they would have and the Romans use that form of to the streets. So not only that there was physical pain, there was public shame. If crucifixion was reserved or was given to the criminals, and you had to physically, literally take up your cross, walk through the street, to use our own context, walk through the street of Basti with this cross in the back, knowing well, and people knowing that it's because you were condemned as being a very bad person. You were condemned for being one of the worst criminals. So not only the physical pain of the beating and the mocking and whatever, and perhaps they may have been physical punishment. Pain of having to carry the cross, having to carry the shame of being a condemned person. So everyone, the disciples and all the other Jews at that time would have known what it was like to the cross. They would have seen it many times before Jesus, and perhaps they would have seen you know that, I don't know how many of us can recall when we were children and young, sometimes your parents want to punish you. And they would say, go bring this strap, go bring the belt. Anybody ever experienced that? So not only that you will be punished for whatever wrong you may have done, you also had the additional or the added going and getting the very thing, the very instrument, the very weapon will be used to punish you. And so, in many ways, it will be the same with those who been crucified. You have to take your cross and carry it to the place where you're going to actually crucify, where you're actually going to be hung on. And following Jesus, therefore, meant a true commitment Because even though Jesus would have fallen, even though he was innocent, even though he could not physically carry his cross to the place of execution, yet he continued, yet he never turned back. Though he had Simon and Cyrene being forced to carry his cross, Jesus' face, Jesus knew that it was God's will that he go to Calvary, where he would suffer and die for us. In order for us to follow Jesus, we too must have that commitment, that steadfastness, that goal, so to speak, where we are moving forward and have our mind fixed on that which God is calling us to do. It calls for total commitment, perhaps even to the point of death. As we often sing, I have decided to follow Jesus, no turning back, no turning back. Why did they compel Simon to pick up the cross? As far as we know from the biblical records, Simon had nothing to do with it. He just happened to be passing by. And yet he was called to carry Jesus' cross. The cross of Christ was laid on him. And they're not told that he resisted. They're told that he took it and helped Jesus carry it to the place of execution. Oftentimes when we see movies with Jesus' crucifixion and the Passion of Christ comes to mind, that film by Mel Gibson about nearly 20 years ago. We can't help looking at films such as The Passion of the Christ and seeing the punishment which Jesus suffered for us. We can't watch these films without being touched, without being moved. I recall when I first saw Passion of the Christ, I was in, I think it was either Wales or Gloucester in England. I think it was in the UK, it was in Gloucester. And first time I saw a movie where everybody was silent from beginning to end. And at the end of it, everybody walked out silent, speechless. Nobody was saying anything. And I'm told that many persons would have actually cried during that film. Anybody ever saw that film? Passion of Christ by Melvins. And though some persons, some critics think that they went overboard in terms of the punishment and the heinous things that we saw, the graphicness, all the graphic violence, I believe it was intended for us to pause and think about what Jesus would have done, would have gone through for us. And sometimes reading about it is one thing, but when we actually see it, though it was just a film, a fiction, it should have really resonated, it should have really touched us, so to speak, in a different way, in a real way. And fortunately, we live in a time when our crosses are not likely to be physical like Jesus's. In other words, we don't suffer crucifixion because we would have sinned or been condemned. And yet Jesus calls us to take up our cross and follow him. And when we think about the cross, and sometimes we say, when we go through a difficult situation, we say, well, I guess this is my cross today. Perhaps it may be a difficult child. Perhaps it may be a very difficult situation at work. maybe family issues. It could be maybe sickness. It could be a point where you're not being given justice. You're being treated or ill-treated by someone or by some system, and you can't seem to get justice. And sometimes you say, well, I guess this is my cross to bear. Question is, when we say that, what are we thinking? Are we thinking that I should just suffer silently, as Jesus would have suffered, like a lamb to the slaughter? Or is it that, in spite of the difficulties, the challenges, and the pain he may be causing us, whether physically, emotionally, or spiritually, should we continue? What goes through your mind? Perhaps you would have said it at some point. I guess that's my cross. What goes through your mind?
I was thinking cross as a different meaning from, like picking up something and a cross or some kind of structure and walking with it. Like Jesus walked with his cross.
Physical cross.
And then there's cross, like suffering, battling some sort of maybe disease or as you just mentioned. So cross actually has more than one meaning.
Right. You're right. So I'm asking, what goes through your mind when you say, I guess this is my cross today? Because on the one hand, Jesus suffered pretty much silently. He didn't resist. On the other hand, when we go through whatever life experience and we say, I guess that's my cross today, are we thinking of, quote unquote, bearing or suffering silently? Or are we thinking that I'm going to continue fighting until we get justice, are we able to overcome, or we get what is rightfully ours?
You persevere.
We persevere?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And overcome. At the time you feel good, you feel sorry, you feel rewarded, but then you reflect, you say, praise to this, and at the end just realize, so I will persevere.
You persevere, so not necessarily giving up or giving in?
No. I mean, you can't give in.
Okay. You were saying something?
No, I'm saying both. You could suffer silently,
Yeah.
or you could be ruthless.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, of course. So when we picture or when we think of Jesus' suffering, falling under the weight of the cross, we were told from scripture that they beat him, they mocked him, they spat upon him, they put a crown of thorns, all this physical punishment.
And he still had to carry this everything on him.
Yes, sorry, go ahead.
No, I said that was double because he still had to carry, he still had to take this heavy thing on him.
Right.
And was still beaten and humiliated.
Right, and the weight of the sin, the world sin, yes. We never say he cried.
Huh?
We say in all of this he didn't cry.
No one didn't shed one tear. You never heard about that.
I don't think from the movies or from the scripture we are not told that. The only time we are told that was when Lazarus died.
Yes.
I think. Yeah.
But what I was saying that with all them lyrics and all them things, he never crossed, and he was giving up the ghost, he cried and he stuff. But I don't think he kind of walking
Well, the thing is, if he was, and we believe, accept that he was fully human, he would have gone through when we go through difficulties and trials and challenges, and it's possible that he could have literally cried into the water, but because he was fully human, and at some point I believe all human beings would cry at some point, apart from death. We would have maybe cried because of pain, sickness, or whatever it is. But what I want us to look at now is on the way to Golgotha, on the way to Calvary. After suffering, first of all, an unjust, unfair trial and verdict, he was innocent, yet he was condemned. Then the physical pain of the way to the cross and the beatings and the punishment. Picture, and perhaps when we think about the movie, the same movie, The Passion of Christ, perhaps that might give us a better picture. Because sometimes we understand better when we see, as opposed to reading or just trying to imagine. Picture him struggling with this big wooden cross on his back. All the while struggling to carry it, and yet while he was struggling, still being punished. So it's like a double agony, so to speak, in that sense. Of course, there was an emotional strain as well. And yes.
In all of this, they still had compassion on him because so he was struggling on weight, and they asked some passerby.
Yes, Simon was saying.
Simon said yes, to assist him. So I think that they had some kind of compassion for him. I might be wrong.
They had to, because he, at one time he couldn't move, he fell down. So, they had to get somebody to take it. Yeah.
And that is where I was coming to, in that he couldn't go any further. That is the point I wanted to make. He could not continue. He couldn't carry the weight with all the physical punishment and the physical weight of the cross. He could not continue. So somebody had to carry it for him.
So it was not in terms of compassion. Because they could have beat him to carry this.
I don't think compassion would have been one of the things on their mind. I don't think so. Because remember we said earlier that crucifixion was usually given to people who are considered bad people, worse criminals. For example, later on in the New Testament, we see like Paul, and they would have been flogged, they would have been put in jail and all this kind of thing. Right? So, it wasn't like a quote-unquote common punishment. It was probably worse. It was not only meant to be physically painful, but the shame. I don't know how families would have felt. But we have given to know that my brother, my father, my son, whoever, my mother, whoever, my uncle would have committed such a heinous crime that they say this is not fit enough to live. You're going straight to the gallows. Not even lifetime. You can imagine how family, people, your own family, how you would have felt. So, Jesus could not carry it anymore, so somebody had to assist. And that is where we're coming back to our topic now. You can't carry your own cross. Jesus himself did not carry it, quote unquote, from beginning to end. And just as Simon of Cyrene was compelled to carry his cross to assist, so too we can carry our own cross. We need God's help, and sometimes we need help of others. We don't get our own. there to follow Jesus. And he would have warned his followers that what happened to him is likely to happen to us and to them as well. Okay, so when you picture him struggling, maybe inching and can't go much further and be falling and be beaten, can't go any further. But yet, he probably tried. Maybe an injured, two little falling again, and so forth. And there are going to be times in our lives when we think we can't go any further. When on our own and in our own strength, we can't go on. You see where I'm coming? In terms of we can't carry our own cross. You see where I'm coming? Now, if Jesus' cross became too heavy, cross was too much for him to bear, and we accept that Jesus was fully human. Yes, he was fully God, but he was also fully human. And what it means for us is that we, in our human nature, our limited human nature and humanness, although we are called to carry our cross, again, we read, if any person will come after me, let them deny themselves, take up the cross, and follow. And in our taking of our cross, a little later we're going to go on it brings us down. Our cross is meant to bring us down. Just as Jesus fell under the weight of the cross, we too need to fall. And we have to fall under the weight of our cross. Because if we're able to carry our own crosses in our own strength, we become powerful. We don't need God. We don't need anyone. So, the cross is designed to bring us down to the point where we recognize our dependence. Physical strength, he could not carry the cross, he could not go on any further. And a cross is a cross. I think it was Sister Burnham mentioned earlier. Whether what it is when Jesus said take a remember those names right after the persecution as well. So at time, I'm not going to take a physical cross. Sometimes we do wear a cross. I was put on my chair. Sometimes we do a little cross. And some people, maybe some entertainers and movie stars, they wear it as a fashion. But for Christians, it should remind us in church, Jewish worship is something that makes the sign of the cross. It's not a style or fashion, but it should be a reminder to us what Jesus went through for us. And for the sake of us. cross is also meant to make us deny ourselves, to be humble, to not be thinking about comforts. Cross be, and we should not see ourselves different. Our cross is spiritual. The lesson is the same. Right? Earlier I mentioned the fact that describing that and so when we fall beneath the weight, the load or weight of our own cross, it should give us hope. It should give us hope. Because we know that Jesus did not stay down. There is a better day. That the cross and the grave is not the end. Because God's victory, we too, or I should encourage us through burdensome experiences. We're not the only one who may fall to the ground at times, unable to go on in our own strength. Sometimes we see people and smiling, happy, but we don't know what they're going through. Others may their expression, their emotions on their face. So as soon as you see my dear sister here, you know what she's going through. Some people smile and carry on and on, but the other. So once we alive, we can better things, better. Go through the steps that led to the cross. The hard truth can carry his or her own cross. Any pause again? Any questions or comments?
Every time you say cross, to me, every time you say cross, you think about Jesus. You think something spiritual. Sometimes you hear something like, why the cross? You know, right away you think about something, you know, spiritual. That's how I see it. You know, cross, cross, cross. Every time
I mean, like George and Ellie, you and I know, right? I would say because we know what the cross means to us, right? Just like how you know, for us, Jesus' name is holy, and it must be treated with reverence, and we know what the commandment said. Right? Do not call the name of the Lord God. And we, our society, well, I say our society, but to other parts of the world. But you know, we one thing else. So this may be sometimes things over the cross for them to use an expression. They're not thinking that what a cross really means for us as Christians. Paul said it best when he said, to those who are perishing, they seem like foolishness. But to us who are being saved, it's the power of God and salvation. First Corinthians, I can't remember the exact chapter. So, foolishness. Just as it may have been for the Greeks, the whole kingdom is like dying on the cross. The cross is going for sinful and wicked people. That's why for us who are being saved is the power of God unto salvation. These are our own cross. And because of course the cross is meant for us to deny ourselves, it's meant to bring us down, it's meant for us to recognize our independence. We can't carry our own cross, or carry a cross in our own. So Jesus knew exactly what he was saying to us and following. He knew that he too would have to face a cross one day. He remembers, Jesus knows, also that Simon because Jesus was God. All of his father us to shoulder, to take up our crosses. In our own strength. Anyway, we continue. So Jesus knew that, or he knows that we can't carry our cross in strength. Having experience, he knew or knows all about the agony and the burden that cross creates. Two criminals the Bible never ever mentioned that those two had to take up to carry the cross like Jesus did. Think about it. There is no mention that they two cross was laid on their backs. And go through the streets, all the way to Calvary, all the way to Golgotha, and carry the cross. We are not told that they were beaten. So it seemed to suggest that they went through great lengths to humiliate Jesus. It would suggest that his punishment was worse than the others. But there was no mention of them having to carry it. But it's possible that they would have had to done that as well, because that was usually what happened. So all of us must come to a point where we recognize that we can't carry our own cross. All of us must come to the point to recognize that we will face situations, we will have experiences where we have no answer. We can't cope or deal with. We don't feel that we can overcome. And whether we look at it or call it as a cross or not, all of us, if we are serious about denying self, if we are serious about following Christ, then we must come to that place where we, in the words of the songwriter, lay it at his feet, lay them down at his feet. Just as Jesus cross brought it down, the honor and glory. So to deny self cannot denying is humility. It is so that experience. So we get to that place where our brings down. Down and down. Without God. Go on. Carry our own cross. It could, because rather than maybe looking sometimes our own way and hurting us. Humbling us. And even though some may sacrilege that Jesus did not carry his own cross, that is true. Let's just read quickly those. As they went out, after mocking him and putting clothes on, they led him away to Jesus' So it's right there for us. Account Matthew's carrying the cross of Jesus. Jesus, who is touched by the feet. Right, it says, he knows our pain. Fully human, so he had to go to a full human experience. So all of us at some point, we will get to that point. We'll get to that point without that. All constantly just as we are. So the our weakness. Pick up that cross. Sometimes we like we don't need no one. Anybody got that? Right. And when we feel that way, we could pick up our cross and carry it in our own strength. Look up, look to me. Don't you think that God had a problem? Don't, I mean, all these miracles that Jesus. So don't you think that God could have supernaturally take me class now being 50? It only it was like so the crucifixion was not a series of blood. Don't blame Judas because betrayed me. We can't this was man, we have no choice. Full of choice. Human and so evil these things, it was winning the battle against God. Probably very winning. And would God take up our cross. And we left out something. How often we think of because that is what Jesus asked us to do. Go right. The point still remains.